Hey everyone, and welcome back to As Art. So today we're going to start a series of installments in an interview with Eugene, who is the founder and creator of the VICO Dynamics plugin, which is a rope, cloth, and soft body plugin for Unreal Engine 4 and Unreal Engine 5. And if that doesn't mean a whole lot to you, we have all kinds of overlays and usage case scenarios that'll really help you understand how flexible the system is, and importantly, how easy it is to work with. Obviously, not many people can just sit down and write their own physics and simulation plugin and just like, oh, I'm just going to do that. Now, we're
Right.
going to get in, I'm sure we're going to get into the reasons and what the purpose was for you to start this at first, but obviously reasons for a background and how you're able to do this is really interesting as well. So if you have any background information on how you came to this point in your career, it'd be awesome to hear about.
Sure. I'll
Yeah.
go as far back as I can.
Cool. Yeah.
Basically, it all started with the Sega that my uncle brought home,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and the first game I played was Mortal Kombat and Sonic. And you growing up and you play these games with your friends. And for me, that was sort of the start of loving the video games.
Hmm.
Played them all through, middle school, high school, whatever.
Uh-huh.
Spent as much time as I could playing them to the point where my parents actually restricted me to playing only on the weekends, which was only enforced when they were home, right? Because the moment they go out the door somewhere, it's like, okay, firing up the Xbox, cool,
Mom and Dad, you deserve time to yourselves. Why don't you guys get
exactly.
it? That's
Yep.
awesome.
And then we got to the phase of, I want to use this proper word, but modifying the console
Oh,
to do
uh-huh.
other things, right?
Which I'm
Uh,
assuming for Sega that I don't didn't
no, no,
hear
not the
about.
Sega, the Xbox.
Oh, the Xbox.
It's
Oh,
already
okay,
at the
okay.
Xbox, yeah.
Oh,
So I
okay, okay.
kind of skipped past the Sega part,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
once I got the Xbox 360,
Uh-huh.
that whole scene of modding it,
Uh-huh.
making it do things beyond it was set up for,
Mm-hmm.
that opened the door into, oh, I can write my own stuff to run on this thing that I've always played games on. This is cool. I mean, that kind of sort of formed the premise of VICODynamics in terms of its requirements because I wanted it to be as efficient as possible
Mm-hmm.
because of the challenges of working on the 360. And this is after I started officially working as a software engineer and
Mm-hmm.
a game developer, working in those specifications and those sort of limits of the platform.
And so you were talking about that kind of got you going with it was the Xbox 360. At that point, or a little bit later on, did you start like taking computer science courses and go that direction, or had you already gone that direction at that
I
point?
started teaching myself. So
Wow.
this was in high school
Wow.
that I already started digging into this. And it actually started with a C++ for Dummies book that I read from cover to cover.
That's so awesome. That's so this is we're not very far in this interview yet, but this might be my favorite moment of that is like the infamous books that a lot of people learn a lot of really good stuff from, but that this
Yeah.
is awesome. It's like that's so awesome. That's so cool.
My parents were very much in the, at least at the time, they were, we want you to get a proper education,
Mhm.
get a degree, yada, yada. So the plan was to
Yada
transfer.
yada.
The plan was to transfer to UC from community college, right? The little sort of stepladder, if you will. Well, as I was going, as I was going with semesters of credits to start the transfer process,
Uh-huh.
work took off even more. And I came
Wow.
to my
Uh-huh.
parents and I was like, why? Like, what's the point? My company's taking off. I'm
Yeah.
doing pretty good. Can I just keep going?
Mhm.
And then at that point, my mom's like, well, at the very least, could you get us a piece of paper saying you finished something in this college just so we have it?
Just to comfort them, not for
Yeah,
you at all. Yeah, that's a good like
exactly.
that. That sounds like a parenting thing to ask. Like, hey, just so,
Yeah.
makes sense.
I went to the counselor and I told her my situation, and this was really funny to me at least. But she took this requirements for the associate's degree in computer science. She took
Mhm.
that piece of paper, crossed out every single class but two, and said, "Do these two, and you got yourself an associate's." Awesome.
That's hilarious. So I mean, so she Your counselor was a female, you're saying, yeah?
Yep.
So she
Yeah.
understood that you had a career path plotted
Yep.
out for you. And that's cool that she was supportive of that. She just wasn't wanting you to
Absolutely.
go to school.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a cool
Mhm.
counselor. That's like, hey, I see that you have a career in front of you. You know, it's for your parents. That's cool. That's a good story.
Yeah.
That's a really good story, actually. The Unreal Engine Marketplace, if those of you that are listening to this haven't visited before, there's a lot of great resources. So you don't have to start making a game from scratch, right? You can download Unreal Engine 4 or 5, very soon for free, and you can get started. But it's still a very deep engine, but you can go to the asset store in the marketplace and you can get models, music, sounds, and all kinds of really complicated, plugins that can help you create your game more efficiently. There's some cool stuff on there, but I don't think aside from the VICO Dynamics plugin, I've never seen a custom physics and simulation engine on there. And maybe you have, and maybe you could tell me that, but you don't. That's not a common thing, and so I'm curious to hear like what the story of how that came about. It's a very interesting, unique product as far as I can see on the marketplace.
Yeah. Thank you. I haven't searched recently, so maybe that's changed. But as far as last I checked, yes, it wasn't a common thing.
No, not
Um,
at all.
I think the closest one was a hair simulation plugin, which was very specific to hair only.
hmm
But
hmm
beyond that, I haven't seen any yet.
but that's completely different to what you're doing with
Right.
yours. I mean, that's yeah,
Yes.
completely different thing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this very much got created naturally. We recently released Action Arcade Wrestling, and by we I mean myself and Dave Horn, who
hmm
is my business partner and partner on the project. And when we were making that game, we had animated ropes, like because it's a wrestling game.
Yeah, you
First of all,
gotta
there's
have
a
the
ring,
ropes. Yeah, you
right?
gotta have
Yeah,
the ropes. Yeah.
exactly. And initially, we were just doing them with animations,
uh-huh.
which was all fun. It worked okay. It was good.
You mean like
But
hand animated animations or?
yes,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
like
Uh-huh.
keyframed, and then you would trigger it. Like when
Uh-huh.
the
Uh-huh.
wrestler bounces off of it, it's always the same animation,
Uh-huh.
no
Uh-huh.
matter where you bounce off the rope.
hmm
And it was okay. And
Uh-huh.
one of the weekends, I thought, it'd be cool if these were actually physically simulated. And I was inspired by the cable component that was already part of UE4. Or it was a plugin that shipped
mm
with UE4. The
hmm
cable
hmm
that did the visuals and sort of the cable, movement pretty well already.
hmm
But it didn't have any collision at all. So I used that as the base, and I thought, okay, what if we had some collision to it? What would that look like? So I started putting that together and did super simple, just ray tracing at each of the particles locations to the next body, and it worked
By the way, I've
really
got to
well.
say he just says super simple ray tracing because to us that's very simple. But all right, continue.
Yeah, well, actually, UE4 makes it fairly simple,
Oh, okay, okay.
code-wise. So it was pretty cool, but and it worked really well. I was like, okay, this is cool. So we integrated that into the game and started playing with it in the prototypes and stuff. And we showed up a preview video, and they got some pretty decent attention. As how'd you do those ropes? They look really cool. I want to do that. Started getting people reaching out, and I thought, okay, well, why don't we make this into a plugin? Let's see if I can package it into something that other people could use in their games. And then I thought, well, what if we go a step further,
Well,
right? Like, well, let's not just make a rope plugin with
uh-huh.
collision. That's cool. That's awesome. But
hmm
what if we go further? What if, and this was at the time, this was about 6 years ago.
hmm
At the time, there was no soft body physics solution that was just general soft body physics.
hmm
We had cloth, we had, what was it? Apex, Apex
Yes.
cloth from
Yeah.
Nvidia.
Uh-huh.
Flex was just, you know, a thought at that point in one of the Nvidia R&D labs
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
time. So I started onto this path of, okay, well, what's involved in
Uh-huh.
turning this into general purpose soft
hmm
body physics library? And that just evolved into what is VICODynamics now.
And so when did this first start where you were kind of looking at it to do accurately simulated ropes for Action arcade wrestling? Like what year would you say?
Oh, geez. This game has been in development for like 10 years.
So it was a while
Because,
back. It's crazy because you started developing this back then, and there's still really no other engine that does what yours does right now. So which is crazy to think. That's
yeah,
how
yeah.
unique it is.
I mean, Flex did release, and it's
Yes.
incredibly cool.
Hmm.
I've played around with it. It's super, super awesome.
Is Flex really integrated into Unreal yet, or not really?
It, no, well, okay. It was at one point. You could pull down a branch from
Yeah, but it's a separate
Nvidia's,
branch, right?
yes,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
I believe it's still maintained.
Yeah.
And the biggest drawback, at least for me, is you are locked to Nvidia hardware. You
Yes. Yeah.
you can't run it off of Nvidia hardware.
And we're definitely getting into that because that is a huge
Yeah.
feature of your system. When we talk about, when Eugene's talking about a branch, so you can download a source code version of Unreal Engine that's by another company and add it to. So NVIDIA, who creates graphics cards and does a lot of different things, they've added their own kind of flavor and technology into Unreal Engine. You can download
Hmm.
that, but you have to compile it. If you wanted to, say, use other assets from the asset store, you can't easily use those things. And like Eugene was saying, it's locked to NVIDIA hardware, whereas Eugene's solution, like we're going to be talking into, it's kind of hardware agnostic because of the way that
Hmm.
you use it, which is something I'll have you, talk more about.
Yeah. The biggest, I guess, challenge is picking performance versus compatibility, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Because performance, put it on the GPU, parallelize it like to hell and back, and it'll be super fast. I mean, look at Flex.
Yeah.
But then you're stuck to CUDA, or you're
Hmm.
stuck to OpenCL, which OpenCL is actually a lot more compatible on
Hmm.
PCs at least.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna go on the consoles or on the phones, you're back to square one.
Like action arcade wrestling has been developed over a long period of time. Obviously, there's a lot more that goes into a game than, just the rope simulations. But how big of an undertaking was this for you to integrate that stuff in there? Was that a huge? I mean, was there ever times where you're just like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into with this? Or at the same time, was it, hey, cool, this rope simulation was really neat. Now I want to develop it into a larger Unreal plugin?
It was very much a I'm sick of working on this game. What else can I do? That was I'm honest with you. That's all it was. And it was the opportunity to learn more about creating code, well, implementing functionality
Hmm.
from nothing but research papers, right?
Oh,
Converting
interesting.
that into workable code. It was a fantastic way to learn how to do that.
How cool.
Yeah,
And
because
you,
you read white papers, right? And you don't get no code with that. Like all you get are these functions and algorithms, and they explain how they should work. And then you're like, okay, cool, but how do I turn this into stuff that happens on the screen? So that was a fantastic way to figure that out.
I just love. I know what white papers are, and I've looked at them. But Eugene just says, and you read white papers. I'm like, well, I personally don't read white papers very often, but it's cool that someone I know now does read white papers and can actually make sense of them. But that's cool. That's awesome that you're just
Yeah.
like, oh, this is a great learning experience that you can go through. Kind of almost research data, put it into real workable solutions. So a video that originally got me to your plugin page it was just called Storm Test. I think it was even in quotes, it might have been. But it
Yeah.
was just this amazing video. I think they even have it, or at least as a background on the Unreal Engine page, or some maybe it's just something that looks similar to it. But it's an amazing, amazing video. And I'm not sure how extensively your plugin's used in it, but literally, it has two things listed. It just has VICO Dynamics and it has like a lens flare plugin, and that's it. And
Mhm.
this video has all kinds of views. People are like, I didn't even realize this wasn't real. This is unreal. I mean, they were just freaking out over it, and
Yeah.
it looks really, really good. And
Mhm.
that's what I'm like. What is this plugin? And that's look it up, and that's how I found your plugin. And I've been following your plugin ever since. I'm just curious: is it crazy for you? Do you just like? Did you stumble across that like everybody else, or did the author kind of reach out to you and say, "Hey, check this out"? I'm just curious if you're as thrilled as everybody else, or you get people reaching out to you on this stuff as well.
I wish people would reach out to me more. Like I honestly, I saw this video after you mentioned it to me and sent me the
Oh,
link.
really?
I
Oh,
haven't seen
wow.
it. No, it's been up for 2 years. Nobody's told me.
That's
I
so
thought it's the
sad.
coolest thing ever. The
It's
way he,
really cool.
yeah, the way he set up the ropes and balanced the wind forces, like it looks genuinely very, very good. Which I believe the cloth as well might be VICO Dynamics from what I saw,
Hmm.
but I don't know. We'll see. But it looks really good.
Yeah, it looks so. I'm gonna, I'll maybe show a small little section of the video. I don't want to put the video in this video because I want the guy to get the
Yep.
views on it. But
Yeah.
it's really cool looking, and he
Mhm.
did like a few other. He doesn't have many videos on his page, just like 4 or 5 videos of him doing random tests with Unreal Engine, like four or
Yeah.
five years ago, and that's it. It's like I want come back. Like, where'd you go? Like, amazing stuff. But yeah, it was just so cool to see, your plugin using that. So you're saying it's probably using the ropes and some of the cloth maybe, but
I
it
believe so.
just
Yeah.
it's just so cool to see it, used in such a integrated fashion with other things in the scene to the point where you can't know really what it's being used for and what it's not. Like
Yeah.
that's a cool test. Like sometimes you use assets in something, you're like, well, clearly that's where that's being used and that's where it leaves off. Like sometimes you can kind of tell, but for that integration, you can't really tell like where it's being used and where it's not. And if you have any other use cases that your users have told you about over time, I'd love to be able to bring some attention to them as well. That'd be cool.
Yeah. A lot of people use it for VR training simulations.
Oh, really?
Like, yes, a
Interesting.
good portion of people that do reach out to me, they use it in VR sort of training. Underwater welding was one that was
Really?
notable. Yeah. Basically, the everything that you need, the gas, the electricity wire that comes down, that was all simulated using VICODynamics to make it, realistic during training, which I thought was so cool.
That's really cool. That's like a serious use case too. That's like
Yeah.
real life. This needs to be pretty accurate too.
Mhm.
That's really awesome. Wow, that's
Uh,
really really cool.
And then there was also, I don't know if it's still being used, but at the time, one of our, I won't say which one, but one of our armed forces was
Mhm.
using it in one of their simulations as well, which was
How
pretty
cool.
neat.
So pretty. So you have underwater welding gas stuff, and then you also have military usage
Yep.
and storm test things. So
Yeah.
I can't imagine you can cover the gamut much more than that. It's covering all your bases.
It
That's
gets
pretty cool.
wider than that.
That's really
The
cool though.
I guess the funniest one was the adult industry,
Oh
which
really?
is I thought that was hilarious,
That is
honestly.
hilarious. Yeah, you can let your mind probably go there, but
Yes.
that's pretty hilarious though. How funny! But it's it really credit to the flexibility of the plugin as far as it can be used
Hmm.
in a large variety of ways, and it's physically accurate, which is really cool.
And that was one important thing that I really wanted to, have the plugin be able to do anything. Like,
Yeah.
you want a rope to look a certain specific way, by all means, change out the mesh.
Uh
You
huh.
can put your own mesh on it if you want, like a chain link, you know, not rope, but at this point it would be a chain.
Yeah.
But if you want those individual chain links to be simulated,
Hmm.
by all means, it'll get a pretty accurate result. So, yeah, pushing this flexibility was a key part.
That's really really cool. And then we'll get obviously as we're going along, we'll get into the more recent things you've added into because you've added in some things way beyond like rope and links and all
Yes.
those things as well. I mean, it sounds like you've got even crazier things, up ahead too.
BMW actually uses it to simulate the harness inside of the engine bay.
Oh, really?
When they're
Oh, how
planning
cool.
out the design of the engine bay, they want the harness to sort of conform to whatever parts are in there. So they were using my plugin to do that.
To conform to the parts of.
So the wires that go inside of the engine bay to hook up all the electronics,
Oh,
they were
okay,
simulating the
okay.
wires with that.
Wow, how
Yeah.
cool. And so did they reach out to you just to let you know they were using it, or did they have like questions on it? Like how did you find out about that?
Yeah, the questions basically.
That's
We're trying to
cool.
do this thing, how would we be able to do that?
That's really
Yeah.
cool. That's awesome. How cool. You
Yeah.
should be super proud about that, man. That's
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 super
awesome.
cool.
That's
Especially
super
me
cool.
being a massive like gearhead. I thought that was the coolest thing. I just forgot about everything. I'm like, yep, All right, I'm done.
All right, I've now
retired.
made it. Yep, I've now
Yeah.
made it. Thank you guys. That was fun.
Exactly.
All right. All right, so we're going to go ahead and stop here for now. Again, there's going to be a part 2 in this interview with Eugene. The second part covers a lot more of the plugin itself, including some really cool features like volume preservation, which just blew my mind when I saw it. So definitely check out part 2. If it's already live, you can find that in a link above or down in the description below. And I'll see you on the next As Art.